All right, we're going to get started. Thanks so much for joining today. My name is Katie Kalusny. I'm a Deputy Director at the Illinois Green Alliance and working on the Building Energy Resource Hub project. This webinar series is a project of the Building Energy Resource Hub in coordination with ComEd. We're really excited to start this series, the Save Money, Save Energy webinar series with episode 1 about ComEd energy assessments. I'm going to walk you through a couple of slides as some intros, and then I'll introduce you to our speakers that will be leading you through a little bit more about the ComEd facility assessments and what they have to offer. But first, a little bit about the Hub. The Hub is a clearinghouse for building retrofit energy and decarbonization resources designed for commercial and multifamily building industry. We have created this Hub and created webinars like today's to help commercial and multifamily building owners, developers, operators, and property managers, contractors, and municipal and community partners assist with planning, financing, and implementing building retrofits within Illinois. But we cannot do this alone. The Building Energy Resource Hub is a project hosted by Illinois Green, but in partnership with many really cool partners, including ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, Elevate, the Illinois Climate Bank, the City of Chicago, and we are also working with supported funding from the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy under the Building Technologies Office, along with generous support from ComEd and the Builders Initiative. We have many industry partners that are helping us along this journey as well to make sure that the content that we are creating for the website and the webinars that we're putting out for everyone is meeting everyone's needs. So we're really thankful for these great partnerships and excited to be here with you today. Some of the goals of the Hub are to educate and train building professionals, support diverse contractors, connect contractors to project pipeline, build capacity for advanced codes and policies throughout Illinois, and then streamline access to financial resources and decarbonization resources. The Hub is working on different resources for multifamily and commercial retrofits, including guiding building owners and operators on funding opportunities, emerging technologies, increasing contractor knowledge with training and financial tools, and then sharing financial resources and incentives like today's program. We have 2 really great speakers today, so I'm going to let them jump into it and get started talking about ComEd's energy assessment. First, we have Brian Keller from Waypoint Energy, who's a senior program manager, and also Aidan Gilbert, who's a senior program manager at ComEd. I'm going to turn it over to Brian first to kick us off. Thanks, Brian.
Yes, thanks, Katie, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We can jump into our next slide. So our agenda for today, a little bit of introductions as we just already started, along with a clean energy overview. And then we'll dive deeper into our facility assessments and get more details there, touch on energy management tools, and then additional ComEd clean energy assessments that are newer offerings as well. And then we'll save some time at the end for some Q&A for any questions out there. Next slide, please. So yes, our clean energy overview. We'll jump into our next slide too. Yes, so as many of you are probably aware, since you're so in tune with your buildings, electricity use is the largest operating expense in commercial office buildings. The lion's share of this consumption is from lighting, heating, cooling, and ventilation, as well as computers. Through the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, there are several offerings designed to help you reduce your electric use by implementing energy efficiency measures, ultimately reducing your overall operational costs. Next slide, please. I can easily say that ComEd is a national leader when it comes to offering comprehensive demand-side management solutions to their customers, while also making the customer experience the top priority. As you can see here, ComEd offers much more than just energy efficiency offerings. Everything from demand response and dynamic pricing, all the way to solar, EV, and beneficial electrification programs. Don't sleep on all these solutions. Please reach out to us to learn more. We'll jump into our next slide where we'll do a deeper dive into our energy efficiency offerings as well. getting back into energy efficiency specifically, my favorite thing to say about the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is there's not only an offering for everyone, but multiple offerings for everyone. Once again, going back to that key word of like comprehensive, lots and lots of different offerings to take advantage of. Starting here with facility assessments, a free service that provides a whole building walkthrough to identify energy saving opportunities. We'll be hearing much, much more about this as we continue today's presentation, so I'll leave it there. We have our traditional incentives that offer a financial benefit to help reduce the cost of your energy efficiency project. These incentives are represented through the standard and custom offerings. Instant discounts that offer a point of sale discount on lighting, new rooftop units, commercial kitchen equipment, and electric fork truck equipment. And then lastly, we have optimization programs like retro commissioning, which offer long-term studies to help you save energy by optimizing your building operations. There will be future webinars that further discuss the standard, custom, and retro commissioning offerings, so stay tuned for those. And I just kind of want everyone to stop for a sec and think about any operational pain points you deal with on a regular basis. And then just remember that ComEd offers a solution that can help. We'll move on to our next slide, which concludes everything I'm discussing today. So that concludes everything on energy efficiency and clean energy solutions overview. I'm now going to turn it over to Aidan Gilbert, Senior Program Manager with ComEd, to discuss the facility assessments offered through ComEd. So yeah, Aidan, take it away.
All right, thanks, Brian. It's good to be with everyone today. Yeah, I'm going to be focusing a lot on facility assessments during this presentation, so we'll just get right in. So facility assessments, we always kind of say that's the best way to kind of get your foot in the door with the energy efficiency programs. It focuses on finding all sorts of applicable energy efficiency measures. If you don't know where to start, this kind of gives you a nice roadmap, and you can come up with plans for how to make your building more efficient. And so kind of some of the benefits on top of that, it's available to all non-residential customers. We do have residential programs that can do assessments on that side, but we're going to be focusing on the business and public sector side. And these assessments are free. It only takes some time from staff from each building, but there's no charges from ComEd. And depending on the size of the facility, these assessments are typically routed to different teams. So for the greater than 400 kW, that's kind of more my focus. Those assessments are done by ComEd energy engineers or contracting engineers. Whereas the smaller customers where their peak demand is under 400 kW, those would fall into our small business program, where a small biz energy service provider would perform an assessment. But in either case, it's a fairly similar process. The only difference is with facility assessment, you get a report that summarizes everything, and we're kind of brand agnostic. But on the small biz side, you basically get a quote, a proposal for work, and you can get started right away. But on the facility assessment side, it's akin to ASHRAE Level 1 assessment. And on top of the other benefits, I mean, if you're looking at things like Energy Star scored benchmarking, finding the opportunities for savings, that through an assessment can usually help increase that score. And if you're interested in having an assessment done, you can contact your account manager if you're working with one, or an outreach professional, or if you want to do it yourself, comed.com/facility assessment. There's a form that you can fill out to submit those requests as well. Next slide, please. So just an overview of our process. We receive a request. Like I said, it could come from an account manager, from the customer itself. But we get the request, we assign it to an engineer. they'll reach out and try to conduct an initial interview with someone from the facility just to gather general information, understand what you do, your operating hours, what kind of systems you're operating, and just to help us prepare for that site visit and make sure that we have everything we need. Then we perform the site visits. We do these mostly in person, but we do have virtual options if that is preferred for whatever reason. Typically, these site visits take about 2 hours. It can vary if it's a larger facility, maybe with multiple buildings, like a campus or anything like that. It may take a little bit longer, but it's usually in that 2 hour range. And during that visit, you'll sit down, you'll go through a lot of questions on the systems and review some energy usage data from the facility. We use our business energy analyzer tool, which I'll talk about later in the presentation. But basically put together some graphs showing the energy usage, see what patterns there are. Maybe there's some anomalies, maybe there's some scheduling opportunities to help reduce load when facilities close, stuff like that. And then we walk through the facility after going through that discussion and kind of see the equipment for ourselves, and helps us identify more opportunities. And I see in the chat, what does it cost? I think we mentioned it before, but these are all free. So hopefully that helps break any barriers. So yeah, but so moving on, we complete the site visit. Then the engineer goes back, starts to develop the report, runs some calculations for energy efficiency and some decarbonization opportunities as well. And they assemble this report and show the estimated savings, both the energy and cost savings, and potential incentives. And then we will either go back out on site or have a call to review the report with our customer contact and hopefully the decision maker if there's projects that are being proposed. And we treat that also as a handoff from the engineering team to our outreach service providers who can help our customers through the application process, if they need to help finding contractors, filling out forms, all those sort of next steps following the assessment. Then we can go to the next slide. So here's just kind of a preview of what the assessment report would look like. We show our energy saving opportunities and we present them with a simple paybacks of the amount of time that it takes for the energy savings to pay for the costs of the projects. But on top of that, we do include low cost, no cost opportunities that we call operational opportunities. Some examples of those are adjusting HVAC schedules, repairing lighting controls if you have occupancy sensors that aren't shutting off when they should be, increasing temperatures in server rooms is a common one. A lot of those get set very, very low temperatures when studies have been done that they can be milder. The report does focus on electric energy savings, but we do include energy efficiency electrification, very similar to beneficial electrification. If you have decarbonization goals, electrification is a necessary step. So we can include those. Fortunately, with the economics, they often do not show the best paybacks, but we want to be able to include those for people that have those decarbonization goals in mind. And so the report, I mean, it's a great tool for building business cases for justifying the implementation of these projects, and it helps build a roadmap for future planning when you want to start implementing those measures. Next slide, please. So just some keys for making a successful facility assessment. Probably the biggest one is just making sure that someone knowledgeable of the facilities systems is on site during the visit, can answer our questions. Typically, this is a building engineer, property manager. Um, we ask a lot of questions during these site visits, so having people that can answer those questions is very helpful. Some things that can also help along the line are if there have been any past assessment reports done, those could be shared ahead of time. If you have equipment information on hand, equipment schedules with sizing, lighting counts, all those all that data definitely makes it for an easier and smoother site visit. If you have any upcoming plans, say you're replacing a chiller or building an addition, all those sort of plans help us put together a more useful report. And then the last one we have here is having that decision maker in the meetings, because we like to get in front of those folks that are going to be making the calls on whether or not any of the projects may be getting implemented. So it definitely helps us understand your needs and plans. So please keep that in mind if you do submit a request. Next slide. And here we just have a few case studies of some projects that have been done after facility assessments have been performed. HVAC controls project where it saved 444 megawatt hours for just shy of $50,000 in incentives, saving them over $28,000 per year. And so when you do the math, the simple payback for that is just a hair over a year. So we definitely like to see those sort of quick payback opportunities. Next one, I think we have a similar one. Next slide, please. Yeah, upgrading the control system, doing a full overhaul, saved 159,865 kilowatt hours, just over $20,000 in incentives, and a little over $11,000 in annual cost savings. And this one resulting in a 3.7-year payback. Next slide. So now we'll go through some energy management tools. Next slide. I think I briefly mentioned the BEA, Business Energy Analyzer. We use this on every facility assessment. We put together graphs showing energy usage at the facility. This is a tool that is available to all non-residential customers. We already have over 5,000 accounts that are signed up, but on top of graphs and charts, you can do year-to-year comparisons. You can see kind of where you stack up compared to similar businesses. If you have multiple buildings, you can see like a portfolio view and see how the buildings compare to one another. But yeah, so ComEd.com/BEA. I will caveat that it has been going through some maintenance lately, but it should be up and running for new users next week is the target. But it's a tool that's proven to save energy, and yeah, it's a vital tool for when we do our assessments. Next slide, please. Then EUDS is our benchmarking tool, energy usage data system. Just since we knew that some of you folks may be part of Chicago and Evanston or Oak Park ordinances to do benchmarking, EUDS is a nice tool that aggregates the energy usage data across multiple accounts. As long as it's 4 or more accounts, they will aggregate that data, and it's actually connected through the Energy Star portfolio manager, and you can basically set up an account in EUDS and link it to Energy Star Portfolio Manager and get your Energy Star scores pretty easily. Right now we have over 9,400 buildings, over 2,000 users. And like I said, this is for certain buildings, I think it's over 50,000 square feet, at least in Chicago, where you have to do this sort of benchmarking as part of an ordinance. So if you have those kind of multi-tenant buildings, it's a very useful tool. Next slide, please. Talk about some other assessments types. I'll just go through this list briefly. The first one we have is our carbon-free public school investments. Those are part of some recent legislation that was passed. That it's very similar to a facility assessment, but it goes a little bit deeper on the decarbonization. There's things like well evaluations, which is just a new sort of eco-friendly evaluation of how a building operates, kind of like LEED. Those are a little bit more involved. They may take a little bit longer than a regular facility assessment. But if you're working with any public schools, it's a great program. Next, we have the fleet electrification assessment. This is a new offering where if your building has a fleet of fossil fuel vehicles and you're considering going to electric, we will do an assessment and evaluate what infrastructure needs have to be implemented, expanding capacity, those sort of projects. So if you're interested in that, definitely advise having an assessment done. Multifamily assessments. This involves a focus obviously on multifamily buildings, but it has some direct install opportunities, and it doesn't matter if you're billed as a residential or commercial account, you could potentially participate in that program. Small business I touched on earlier, those less than 400 kW customers, peak demand customers, can do small business assessments, and typically there's a bit of a increased incentive for the small businesses to help push those projects through. Retro commissioning, I think Brian talked about this briefly, and there's going to be future webinars on this, but if you want to get kind of into the fine details of how a control system works, it's closer to that ASHRAE level 2 assessment, but they'll look at most very low cost projects, and typically paybacks are less than a year and a half, and just makes it sure you're fine-tuning that system so that you're operating as efficiently as possible. And then the last one here, industrial systems. Basically, if you have a compressed air, process cooling, refrigeration system, or wastewater treatment plant, there are assessments that are dedicated to those systems. I do see we are at 25 after, so I think we can jump to the Q&A section. Katie, I can hand it back to you.
Awesome, thanks, Aiden. I'm going to leave this slide up just for a second in case people are writing down any of these links, but also we're going to send a follow-up email that includes these links to everyone as well. So don't feel like you need to scribble these down. In addition, when we do send out the slide deck after the webinar, there's some additional slides that Aiden and Brian have included at the end of this deck that dive into some of these additional assessments as well. I have a couple of questions. just to kick it off, and I know that I've seen a lot of activity in the chat. Could I just ask again, just so everyone hears this, if they're not looking at the chat, the assessments are free, correct, Brian and Aiden?
Correct.
And is a project required to be done in order for it to be free? Or the
Nope.
assessment is free
Nope.
and projects are just an option?
Yeah, the projects are completely optional. I mean, we hope that you take it to the next step, but yeah, there is no requirement that you have to do any projects with a facility assessment. Now, some of the other programs, like retro commissioning industrial systems, I think they can do like preliminary kind of studies, but once there is kind of a threshold in the depth of the assessment before those do require it. But for just a regular facility assessment, there's nothing like that.
Awesome. And if someone has done a facility assessment with ComEd 3 or 5 years ago, are they eligible to have an assessment again, or are there any requirements around when the last time an assessment has been completed?
Yeah, we can go back. We typically advise waiting at least 3 years. If there is kind of an urgent need, maybe you changed your operation drastically since the last time we were out there, we can do another assessment sooner, but typically we advise waiting those 3 years. And we can also update old reports. I mean, our incentive levels change from year to year, so we're happy to do that as well.
Awesome. And I have one more before I'll go to audience questions, and that is kind of the approximate timing of the project. If everyone's responding quickly and setting up their assessments and doing the interview, from the time that you request an energy audit to having the audit, and then how much time it might take after that audit to have that meeting and get the report, like what's the kind of typical time frame from start to that kind of final report meeting?
Well, so we'll say when we submit the initial request, typically if we can get a hold of the person right away, we'll schedule it probably 1 to 3 weeks out. And then we try to target delivering the final report 3 to 4 weeks after that site visit. So I'd say, maybe a 6 to 8 week process from the very, very beginning.
Awesome. Thank you for that. As Aiden mentioned earlier, we have our next Save Energy, Save Money series coming up on August 21st. We're going to dig into the retro commissioning program with ComEd quite a bit further, like we did with facility assessments today. So we'll also have a link to that if you're interested in learning more about the retro commissioning program. Thanks everyone for joining us with the Building Energy Resource Hub and the ComEd Energy Efficiencies program today. We're really excited to have you all, and have a great afternoon.